Hello and welcome to another NihongoGamer video. While I'm driving, the reason I'm making this video today is because I know that if I don't make it, I'll forget. I'll keep saying at the end of every video, yeah, one day I'm gonna make that video, one day I'm gonna make that video. But today's video is why did I buy the MX-5 NC? So that's what model of car this is. And I think it's an interesting topic for a lot of people who are interested in buying a car because there are 4 models of MX-5. It's been going for a long time. And people don't often choose the NC, I think, because the classic shape of the MX-5, or also known as the Miata car, is the original one, the NA. So there's an A, a B, a C, and a D. But the truth is, the main reason I bought this car, I'm 80% sure it's just because it was suggested to me on YouTube. You're just watching YouTube videos. First you watch Initial D, and you're just like, oh yeah, maybe I should buy a Toyota 86 Hachiroku. You're like, oh yeah, I start looking those up. Oh, they're pretty expensive, even though really old. And so you start looking up other cars. Like, oh, there's a newer version of the 86. I started looking around. I was like, wait, I'm not even doing any sporty driving anyway. I'm not planning on drifting. I just want a nice car that's fun to drive around the countryside. And then you end up on this path that leads you down the MX-5. So the MX-5 is like, I think it's about as cheap a sports car as you can get. I mean, for the money. So the MX-5, there's 4 models, and the newest one is the ND. So after I was on YouTube, I was like, okay, there's obviously a large number of cool MX-5 cars out there, but the newest one is the ND, and that's the one that I can probably see in a shop. So I went to the local Mazda dealer, and I got in one of these cars, and it turns out it was called the ND RF. So there's apparently 2 versions of this car. One which is soft top, which most MX-5 cars are soft tops. And then there's also the hardtop version, which came out, I think, a little bit later. The nice thing about the hardtop, though, is that it's electric. So on this brand new ND MX-5 that I was looking at, I was like, wow, you just press the button and it kind of comes out like a transformer. It's like, and I think that's the dream of a lot of people is, when you're a kid, you play with transformers. And then when you become an adult, you're like, well, if I'm going to buy a car, I may as well be as close to a Veritech from Robotech as possible, right? And that's kind of what this is. It doesn't have wings, it doesn't fly, but it does transform. And that is one of the coolest things about this car, but it's not the ND. So I was at the shop, at the Mazda dealer, looking at these ND MX-5s, which are really nice, but actually kind of expensive. So it's like, if you're going to buy the least expensive sports car, because that's quite cool, it's like, wow, even though it's low price, it just performs really well, you may as well buy one that is actually low priced. So when you start to buy an expensive MX-5, you gotta ask yourself, why are you buying an MX-5? Why don't you just go all out and buy a Porsche Boxster or a 911? There are plenty of good reasons why you might want to buy an expensive MX-5, but I was looking at it and going, okay, well, one, it is quite expensive. I just want an electric hardtop. I don't actually need the ND model. And I started looking at what's the oldest MX-5 you can buy, which has an electric hardtop. Turns out the NA doesn't have an electric hardtop. The NB, I think the NB had a hardtop, but you could take the whole thing off or put it on. You couldn't press a button and have it transform electronically. So the earliest one that you can buy is this, the NC MX-5, and that is why we've got this car right now. The other thing is that when you're like, okay, well, maybe if I just spend a little bit more money, I can get the soft top new version, the ND, or the hard top, even more money for the ND version. And I considered it. I was like, well, it's not a whole lot more money. Maybe I'll just spend a bit more, work a bit harder, get the cash, and I'll just buy the ND RF, and it's a very cool looking car. But then I remembered when I tried it, and then I started looking up some more reviews. And when I went to the shop at Mazda, I did notice that it's got these big pillars on the right and the left side behind your head. And I started to think, why am I buying this car anyway? Well, it's one, to pick people up from places and run errands, go to the grocery store and pick stuff up like milk when I'm told to do it. But the other reason is because mainly, probably 90% of the time, I'm just going to be using it for stuff like this, YouTube videos. And if I'm gonna, I thought I might even make a separate channel just for making driving videos. But I haven't got to that point yet. At the moment, we're still at the point of just making videos on the normal channel, just chatting about fighting games or chatting about cars. Anyway, the best thing about it is that when it's an open top car, you can see all around. So that's crazy, isn't it? So of all the 4 Mazda MX-5s, there are 2 that have electric hardtops, and clearly the nicer one is the ND. Well, I say nicer, it's kind of the more modern looking car. The NC is the smoother, rounder, kind of funky oblong shape, which I really like, but it's, you know, down to personal taste and all that. Well, when it comes down to it, even if you like the ND, it's like, it's so much more expensive, and you can't actually see that much. Whereas if I'm going to be recording videos like this, where you can actually see to the left and to the right and in front of you and up into the sky, may as well have as good a view as possible. So that is how I ended up deciding on the MX-5, and that's why we're driving it here. And if you want my short review of this car, it's incredible. I love everything about it. I would say I was quite shocked when I first drove this car. I was like, wow, this thing shakes. It's like, is it broken? Is it just because it's old and it's like, maybe the suspension's dead? Whoa, this person's like driving in the middle of the road. Anyway, it turns out that this car is awesome fun to drive, and I think it's just as a solid sports car that doesn't bounce around the corners too much. I think actually of all of the cars, I think the NC probably has the softest suspension, as I understand. I mean, I only know what I see in YouTube videos, but to me, coming from a K car, which is a special designation of car in Japan which can only go up to like half, like 0.6 liter engine, I think that's as big as they can get. Well, going from one of those, which is really nice and smooth, kind of slow, but really nice and smooth and modern, going to this, which is like, this car is from 2007, so it's fairly old, and that means I got a I got a reasonably good price on it. Well, it feels like a sports car. It's not like a luxury, smooth, relaxing cruising car. Trying to figure out where I am. I'm all over it. Absolutely love everything about this car. There is one thing that I noticed after I had already purchased it though, because I wasn't really thinking about racing and all that, but then of course, when you're on YouTube, you look at all the videos and there are a lot of people who are like, how good is the MX-5 for going onto track days and all that, or drifting, or uphill climb racing and all that stuff that I don't actually plan to do. But I was watching the YouTube videos. One of the things that this car doesn't have is called a limited slip differential. Again, didn't even know what that was until I watched the YouTube video. But it turns out, if you want to do drifting stuff, you need to have the wheels be able to like spin independently or not independently, depending on the situation, right? Well, it turns out you need something called a limited slip differential for that. And this car has basically the works. I think it has everything you'd want to add to the car when you buy it. It has leather seats, it has a security system that like shouts. It's got this Japanese voice that like, what's the word? It scolds you basically. It's this Japanese woman's voice who scolds you if you just walk near the car. It's just like, there's a security system on this car, please back away. It's like, all right, chill out. You're not exactly the most expensive luxury car in the world, but I love that the NC is trying so hard to like be something that it's not. Like, that's kind of what's really funny about the whole MX-5 car thing, is that it's trying to be a British roadster from the very start. It's like a Japanese company going, how do we make a British car? British cars, which I think they're well known for like catching fire and exploding, which is not funny, it's terrifying. But that's what this is really. It's the Japanese version of a car, and so it's kind of like they improved the only thing that was kind of faulty about British open-top racing cars is apparently they weren't very reliable. But what's really funny about the MX-5 trying to be something that it's not, which is kind of cute in a way, isn't it? It's just like, I want to be a race car. I'm not a race car, but I want to be one. What's funny about that is that the NC on top of that is also kind of confused. I think at the time when they made this car, I think it was partially owned by Ford, or I'm not sure exactly what the deal was. I think the engine in this car is actually from a Ford. The other thing is, it doesn't have a special platform. Cars have like a base chassis, and all the MX-5s are based on the MX-5 chassis or whatever. This MX-5 is based on a chassis for the other car that Mazda was making called the RX-8, which I think it came out a couple of years before this car, or a year or two before this car did. And so it's funny because as a result, the car had to be a certain size. You know, even if they wanted to make it a small MX-5 car, they were like limited on what they could actually do to change the size of it. So what's really funny about it is that it kind of thinks it's an RX-8, even though it 100% isn't. Like, I think the main thing about an RX-8 Mazda is that it's got a rotary engine. Apparently that's a big thing in Japan. Rotary engine! I've seen like slow motion videos of them. They're very, very cool. But that's not what this is. This is just a normal sporty car engine. We're not racers. We just want to open the top and take videos while driving. And that's exactly why we have this one. So I guess the last thing I want to say is that, again, I think the obvious choice, if you're going to buy an electric hardtop, is to just buy the fanciest, nicest one you can, which is the ND RF. But like I said, it's not, you don't feel as open. It does feel very open, but it's more like a deluxe sunroof than having a car that's actually open like this, or the NA or the NB. But the other reason why I decided not to go for the ND was that it's like, I'm gonna buy an MX-5, and I feel like the ethos of the MX-5 is just being this fairly simple, you know, box of steel with an engine that's fun to drive, and it's kind of simple. And the ND kind of looks like it's trying to be a luxury car, which isn't a bad thing, but it does kind of look like it's trying to be like a luxury car. And it just didn't feel right to make my first MX-5 be a really fancy one that looks like a sports car, like a luxury car. I think the NA, the NB, and the NC all have that simple, down-to-earth, I'm not here to spend a load of money, I'm here to just have fun with my car. I'm not here for you to see my car, I'm here for me to see my car. And I think that's an important concept for driving in general. There are people who buy cars who want to be seen in their cars. They want people to be impressed by their cars. But I don't think that's what the MX-5 is all about. And I'm going to make a video about this in the future, but it's also kind of how I feel about the Brompton bicycle. You know, Brompton bicycle isn't about being seen in a Brompton. There's nothing cool about the Brompton. Okay, it transforms and it's novel, but people who don't know what it is, they won't know what it is. It's like 90% just personal joy. The Brompton is fun to drive, fun to ride, and you know, it transforms and it's convenient. And that's what this is all about, I feel like. The MX-5 definitely feels like it's all about just being for the driver. In fact, I think they call that something, don't they? They call it being a driver's car. Anyway, we are almost at the destination. I don't have many chances to actually show you the front of the car because I'm always inside the car, and it's actually quite difficult, it turns out, to attach cameras to the outside of the car legally. So that's why I have to do all my cameras on the inside of the car. So this is one of the rare occasions that you'll actually get to see the outside of the car, but this is what it looks like. I've ordered some prescription sunglasses, and today is the day that I'm going to come and collect them, so let's go in and get them. Alright, time to try these new sunglasses. They're prescription. I never thought to get prescription sunglasses, but Once you buy an open-top car, suddenly this becomes a necessity. Wow, I can actually see and the sun is not glaring in my eye. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this episode of While I'm Driving, NihongoGamer video. Remember to subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more. Leave a comment if there was some comment you have about these cars, this MX-5, this is the NC model, but maybe you like any of the other models better, or you got like another car that you think is really interesting. Do let me know in the comment section below, and leave a like if you can do, that would be great. I'll see you all in the next NihongoGamer video.